If you work nights, you should probably skip this one, because what I'm about to tell you happened 3 months ago at Evergreen Memorial Services, and I still can't look at a phone without my hands shaking. I was the night operator for their crematorium hotline. Yes, that's a real job. When someone dies, families need answers at 3 in the morning. They need to know about arrangements, costs, paperwork. Someone has to be there to pick up. That someone was me. The office was small, tucked in the back of the funeral home, away from the viewing rooms and chapel. Just a desk, a filing cabinet, and a wall covered in photos of clients. That's what they called them. Clients. Never the deceased, never the dead. Always clients. The photos were supposed to humanize the work, my supervisor said. Help us remember we're serving families in their darkest hours. I tried not to look at them. Hundreds of faces staring down at me, frozen in graduation photos, wedding pictures, vacation snapshots, all of them ash now. The phone was ancient, a rotary desk model in that particular shade of beige that only exists in offices that haven't been updated since 1987. It had a heavy receiver that made my shoulder ache if I tucked it against my ear for too long. The ring was shrill, mechanical, cutting through the silence like a fire alarm. I jumped every single time it rang, even after 6 months on the job. The office always smelled like flowers, lilies mostly, that thick, almost rotten sweetness that funeral homes pump through the vents to cover up the other smells, the chemical ones, the ones that stick in your throat. After a while, you stop noticing it, or you think you do. But sometimes, late at night, I'd catch something underneath the floral perfume. Something sharp and wrong that made my stomach turn. My coworker, Diana, worked the day shift. We'd overlap for an hour during the handoff at 11 p.m. She was in her 50s, chain-smoked menthols, and had been doing this job for 12 years. On my first night, she'd given me the rundown while filing her nails with quick, efficient strokes. Most calls are straightforward, she'd said. Families asking about pricing, scheduling, what documents they need. Sometimes you get the emotional ones. Let them cry. Don't rush them. There's a script in the top drawer for the standard questions. Pretty simple stuff. Then she'd paused, studying her thumbnail with sudden intensity. But if you get a weird call, hang up immediately. I'd laughed. Weird how? She didn't laugh back. Her eyes met mine, dead serious. If someone calls asking about their own cremation, hang up. Don't engage. Don't ask questions. Just disconnect and log it in the red notebook in the bottom drawer. I'd opened my mouth to ask what she meant, but she'd already grabbed her purse, stubbing out her cigarette in the overflowing ashtray. The red notebook has all the instructions you need. Follow them exactly. And don't work past your shift. When 6 a.m. comes, you leave. Even if the phone is ringing. Especially if the phone is ringing. For the first few weeks, nothing unusual happened. I answered calls from grieving sons and daughters, from spouses trying to hold themselves together long enough to make arrangements. I read from the script, scheduled appointments, transferred calls to the director's voicemail. I ate vending machine sandwiches and watched the security camera feed from the parking lot, where nothing ever moved except the occasional fox threading between the cars. The first strange call came on a Tuesday in October, 2:14 in the morning. I'd been reading a novel, trying to stay awake through the dead hours. The phone rang. I picked up on the second ring. Evergreen Memorial Services, this is Sarah. How can I help you tonight? Silence. Not dead air, but the kind of silence where you know someone is there, breathing, listening. Hello? This is Evergreen Memorial Services. The voice that answered was male, middle-aged, perfectly calm. Yes, hello. I'm calling to confirm my appointment. Of course, I said, pulling up the scheduling system. Can I have your name, please? Martin Alvarez. I typed it in. The name popped up immediately. Martin Alvarez. Service scheduled for October 18th, 2 weeks away. Yes, Mr. Alvarez, I have you here for the 18th at 10 a.m. Were you looking to reschedule? Another pause. No, I wanted to confirm the date, October 18th. That's correct. What time will the cremation begin? Something in my chest tightened. The cremation itself typically begins an hour after the service, so around 11 a.m. But sir, usually the family coordinates those details with our director. I'm not asking for my family. I'm asking for myself. The words landed like stones. I stared at the computer screen, at the name glowing in blue letters. My hand had started to sweat against the receiver. I'm sorry, sir, I don't understand. What time? He repeated with eerie patience. Will my cremation begin? Diana's warning flashed through my mind. If someone calls asking about their own cremation, hang up. I'm sorry, there must be some confusion. Let me transfer you to... October 18th, he interrupted. 11 a.m. That's good. I'll be ready. The line went dead. I sat there for a full minute, listening to the dial tone, my heart hammering against my ribs. Then I hung up and pulled out the red notebook from the bottom drawer. The pages were filled with dates and times, written in different handwriting. Different operators, I realized, years of them. Each entry followed the same format: date, time of call, name given, scheduled service date. And at the bottom of each page, in careful block letters, someone had written, "Do not call back, do not investigate, log and continue." I logged the call with shaking hands. Then I sat back and stared at the wall of photos. My eyes found one near the top, a man in his 60s, smiling at a backyard barbecue, flipping burgers. The name card below read Martin Alvarez, 1956 to 2023. He'd been dead for 2 years. The rest of the shift crawled by. I kept looking at the phone, waiting for it to ring again. It didn't. At 6 a.m. exactly, I grabbed my bag and left, following Diana's rule to the letter. When I came in that night, Diana was waiting. She took one look at my face and nodded. You got one. Martin Alvarez. She lit a cigarette even though smoking wasn't allowed in the building. Yeah, he calls every few months, always the same, always confirming his appointment. But he's been dead for 2 years. She exhaled slowly, smoke curling toward the ceiling. They all have. Every single one in that notebook, dead and cremated. But they still call. Wrong numbers, I guess. Some kind of cross line between there and here. That's what I tell myself anyway. What happens if you don't hang up? Diana's hand paused halfway to her mouth. She stared at me for a long moment, her expression unreadable. Then she crushed out the cigarette and picked up her purse. I don't know, and neither should you. Just follow the rules, Sarah. Hang up, log it, move on. She left without another word. For 3 weeks after the Martin Alvarez call, nothing happened. The phone rang with normal calls, grieving families, administrative questions. A woman who sobbed for 20 minutes about her husband, while I listened and said all the right things from the script. I started to relax, started to think maybe the strange calls were rare. Random glitches in whatever cosmic phone system connected the dead to the living. Then they started coming more frequently. The second call came on a Thursday, 3:37 in the morning. I was eating cold pizza from the break room fridge when the phone shrieked to life. I picked up, still chewing. Evergreen Memorial Services, this is Sarah. Is this the right number for cremation services? The voice was female, elderly, with a slight tremor. Yes, ma'am. How can I help you tonight? I need to know if you received my paperwork for my service. My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice steady. Can I have your name, please? Dorothy Huang. I pulled up the system, already knowing what I'd find. Dorothy Huang. Service scheduled for November 3rd, 4 days away. Yes, Mrs. Huang. I show everything in order for the 3rd. Good. I wanted to make sure. I don't want to be a burden to my daughter. She works so hard. My finger hovered over the disconnect button. Mrs. Huang, are you calling on behalf of a family member or... On behalf of myself, dear. I want everything perfect. I've picked out my dress, the blue one with the pearl buttons. Will someone help me put it on? I hung up. My hand was shaking so badly I knocked over my soda, brown liquid spreading across the desk toward the red notebook. I grabbed it, flipping to a clean page and logged the call. Dorothy Huang's photo stared down at me from the wall. A tiny woman in a garden holding a watering can, smiling at whoever held the camera. The next call came 2 hours later, then another at 4:45, then 3 more before my shift ended. Different names, different voices, all of them asking about their own cremations. All of them already dead, their services already completed, their ashes already scattered or stored in urns on family mantles. I filled 4 pages in the red notebook that night. Diana found me still sitting there at 6:15, violating her cardinal rule about leaving on time. She didn't say anything about that, just looked at the notebook, at the pages of fresh entries, and sat down heavily in the chair across from me. "It's getting worse, isn't it?" I said. She pulled out a cigarette but didn't light it, just rolled it between her fingers. "Comes in waves, sometimes months of nothing. Then nights like this, weeks like this. Why? What's causing it?" She shrugged, still studying the cigarette. "Building's old, been a funeral home since 1952. Before that, it was a hospital. Before that, who knows? Some places, the walls get thin, between here and wherever they go. Phone lines are just copper and electricity. Maybe electricity doesn't care about the difference between the living and the dead." "That's insane." "Yeah," she finally looked at me and her eyes were exhausted. "It is, but you logged them, right? Followed the rules?" I nodded. "Then you did your job. Go home, sleep, come back tonight and do it again." "What if I don't want to come back?" Diana stood, slipping the cigarette behind her ear. "Then don't. No one would blame you. This job isn't for everyone. But if you do come back, remember the rules, especially the one about not working past your shift. That one's important." "Why? What happens if I stay?" She paused in the doorway, her back to me. "I don't know. The last girl who worked past 6 a.m. didn't show up for her next shift, or any shift after that. We found her name in the system 3 weeks later. Service scheduled and completed while she was still alive." My blood turned to ice. What? But Diana was already gone, her footsteps echoing down the hallway. I should have quit. I know that now. Should have walked out right then, blocked their number, found literally any other job. But I needed the money. Student loans don't care about ghost calls. Rent doesn't pause for existential dread. And some stupid part of me was curious, wanted to understand, wanted proof that this was real and not just stress-induced hallucinations. So I came back that night. The calls continued, sometimes 2 a shift, sometimes 8. I got efficient at it. Answer, identify, hang up, log. I stopped listening to their questions, stopped engaging at all, just disconnected the moment they said their own name. The red notebook filled up. I requisitioned another one. But I started noticing other things. The photos on the wall seemed to multiply. I'd count them during slow hours, 147, then 153, then 168, new faces appearing overnight. Some of them looked recent, digital photos printed on glossy paper, not the faded Polaroids and film prints that made up most of the wall. The smell got worse. The lily perfume couldn't cover it anymore. That sharp chemical tang grew stronger each night, creeping out from the vents like something alive. I started bringing a scented candle, vanilla, anything to mask it. It didn't help. And the cold. Even though the thermostat read 72 degrees, the office felt freezing after midnight. My breath didn't fog, but my fingers went numb. I wore 2 sweaters and kept my coat on. Worst of all were the calls that came when the phone didn't ring. It started small. I'd hear the conversation continuing after I hung up. Faint, tinny voices leaking from the receiver even though it was settled in the cradle. I told myself it was old wiring, crossed signals, but the voices were always the same ones. The people I'd just disconnected, still talking, still asking their questions into the void. Then one night, I heard my own voice coming from the phone. It was 2:43 in the morning. I'd just hung up on a man named Robert Chen who wanted to know if his ashes would be scattered at sea like he'd requested. The phone was back in its cradle. I was logging the call. And then I heard it. Faint but unmistakable. "Evergreen Memorial Services. This is Sarah. How can I help you tonight?" My own voice, my exact inflection, coming from the phone. I stared at it. The receiver sat innocent and still, but the voice continued, growing slightly louder. "Can I have your name, please?" A pause. Yes, I have you in the system. I was having a conversation with someone, but I wasn't on the phone. I was sitting 3 feet away, frozen, listening to myself talk to someone I couldn't hear. No, I can't provide that information. I'm going to have to disconnect this call. Click. Silence. I didn't move for 5 full minutes, just sat there, staring at the phone, waiting for something else to happen. When it finally rang for real, I almost screamed. I let it ring 4 times before I could force myself to pick up. It was a normal call, a son making arrangements for his father. I went through the script on autopilot, scheduled the appointment, and hung up. Professional, calm, like I hadn't just heard myself talking to the dead through a phone that wasn't even off the hook. I should have left then, should have violated Diana's rules and walked out at 3 in the morning. But I stayed, because leaving felt like admitting something was real, and if it was real, that meant I couldn't escape it just by walking away. The breaking point came on a Monday night in late November. The first real cold snap of the season. Ice on the parking lot, frost creeping up the windows of the office like fingers. Diana didn't come in for the handoff. I waited until 11:30, then called her cell, straight to voicemail. I tried the main office, no answer. I was alone in the building except for whoever was downstairs in the prep room, and they never came up to the administrative floor. I thought about leaving. The rule about working your shift seemed less important than the rule about self-preservation. But something kept me in that chair. Maybe habit? Maybe curiosity? Maybe the same dark magnetism that makes people slow down to look at car accidents. The calls that night were relentless. 7 in the first hour, 12 in the second, all of them the same, all of them asking about their own cremations. Men, women, children. The children were the worst. High voices asking if it would hurt, if they'd be scared. I hung up on every single one, but their questions burrowed into my brain like parasites. By 3 a.m., I'd filled 6 pages in the red notebook. My hand cramped from writing. The office felt like a freezer. I could see my breath now, despite what the thermostat claimed. The chemical smell had become overwhelming, burning the back of my throat. That's when I noticed the photos. Not just that there were more, I'd gotten used to that, but that some of them were moving. Not dramatically, not like in horror movies where portraits twist and scream, just small shifts. A head tilted at a slightly different angle than before. Eyes that seemed to track me as I moved around the desk. Smiles that looked wider, sadder, more knowing. I stood up, walking to the wall for a closer look. My heart hammered so hard I could feel it in my teeth. I examined the photos one by one. Martin Alvarez at his barbecue, Dorothy Huang in her garden, Robert Chen on a boat, the ocean stretching behind him. And then I saw it. A new photo. Bottom row, far right, recent, digital. A young woman with dark hair and tired eyes wearing a name tag. The caption below read, Sarah Mitchell, 1997 to 2024. That was my name, my birth year. But 2024 was this year, and I wasn't dead. I grabbed the photo, ripping it off the wall. My hands shook as I stared at it. It was definitely me. Same small scar above my left eyebrow from a childhood fall. Same silver necklace I wore every day. Same exhausted expression I saw in the mirror every morning after these shifts. The phone rang. I dropped the photo. It fluttered to the floor, landing face up, my own eyes staring back at me. The phone kept ringing. That shrill, mechanical scream cutting through the frozen air. I didn't want to answer it. Every instinct screamed at me to run, but my body moved on autopilot, months of conditioning overriding my terror. I picked up the receiver. Evergreen Memorial Services, this is Sarah. The voice on the other end was female, young, frightened. Oh, thank God. I need help. I'm so confused. I was just at work and now I don't know where I am. Everything's dark and cold and I can't find the door. My throat constricted. Where are you calling from? I don't know. There's this phone. It's the only light. Everything else is just nothing. Please, can you send someone? I work at Evergreen Memorial. I'm the night operator. My shift doesn't end until 6, but I can't find my way out. What's your name? A pause. Then, in a voice that sounded exactly like mine, Sarah Mitchell. I slammed the phone down, backed away from the desk. The photo on the floor seemed to glow in the dim light. My photo, my name, my death date, this year. I ran to the filing cabinet, yanking open drawers with shaking hands, found the cremation schedule, flipped through pages of appointments, November, December, and there, on December 2nd, tomorrow, 10 a.m., Sarah Mitchell. Service and cremation. Note section, found deceased in office. No next of kin notified yet. Proceeding with county arrangement. I couldn't breathe. The room spun. The phone rang again and I ignored it, grabbing my coat, my bag, everything. I had to get out, had to leave and never come back. This was insane, impossible, some kind of sick joke. But the photo was real. The schedule entry was real. And as I turned to run, I saw something that made my legs nearly give out. The door was gone. Not locked, not blocked, gone. Where the door should have been was just wall. Blank drywall painted the same institutional beige as the rest of the office, like there had never been a door at all. I touched the wall, solid, real. My fingers came away dusty, like it had been there for years. I pounded on it, screaming. No sound came back. The wall absorbed everything. The phone kept ringing. I spun around, looking for windows, but the office had never had windows. How had I never noticed that before? No windows, and now no door. Just walls covered in photos of the dead, and me, my photo, right there with them. The temperature dropped further. I could see ice forming on the desk, the phone. My breath came out in thick clouds. The ringing continued, patient and insistent. I had to answer it. Something in me knew that. Some terrible certainty that this was the only way forward. I walked back to the desk like a prisoner approaching the gallows. I picked up the phone. Evergreen Memorial Services. The voice was my own. Hello, I'm calling to confirm my appointment, December 2nd. I forced words through my frozen throat. This isn't real. 10 a.m. Will it hurt? I'm not dead. I'm standing right here. A pause. Then, gently, almost kindly, are you? The office lights flickered. In that moment of darkness, I saw them. All of them. The people from the photos, standing around my desk. Martin Alvarez, Dorothy Huang, Robert Chen, the children, dozens of them, hundreds, all watching me with patient, knowing eyes. The lights came back. They were gone, but the phone was still pressed to my ear and my voice was still speaking. You've been here a long time, Sarah, longer than you think. Check the clock. I looked. The clock read 5:47 a.m., almost time for my shift to end, almost 6, but that was wrong. It had just been 3 a.m. I'd only been here 4. How long had I been here? I tried to remember coming in tonight, parking my car, walking through the building, but the memories were fuzzy, distant, like something I'd done months ago, years ago. When was the last time I'd gone home? The voice on the phone continued, patient as a teacher with a slow student. You stayed past your shift, don't you remember? Back in September, you wanted to finish logging the calls, just a few more minutes. But minutes don't work the same way here, not after 6 a.m., not when you're supposed to leave but don't. No, that's not. I go home every morning. Do you? Where's your apartment, Sarah? What does it look like? I opened my mouth to answer. Nothing came. I couldn't picture it. Couldn't remember the color of my walls, the view from my window, anything. Just this office, this desk, this phone. How long have I been here? Since September 14th. That's when you became a client, but you kept answering the phone anyway. It's what you do, what we all do. We keep working our shifts, answering our calls, waiting. Waiting for what? For someone to make the arrangements, to schedule the service, to make it official. The clock ticked to 5:59 a.m. 1 more minute. The voice on the phone was gentle now, almost comforting. 1 more minute and your shift ends. Then you can rest. I stared at the clock. The second hand crawled forward. Each tick felt like an eternity. 58, 59, 6 a.m. The office shuddered. The walls rippled like water. And suddenly, the door was back. Just appeared as if it had always been there. The early morning light leaked through the crack at the bottom. Real light. Warm and golden and alive. I dropped the phone and ran. Grabbed the handle. It turned. The door swung open and I stumbled into the hallway, gasping like I'd been underwater. The funeral home stretched out before me. Normal. Quiet. Real. I ran down the corridor, past the viewing rooms, past the chapel. My footsteps echoed on the tile. Every sound felt like a gift, evidence of reality, of existence. The front doors, I could see them. Glass and chrome, and beyond them, the parking lot. My car. Freedom. I hit the doors at a full sprint, shoving them open, and burst out into the cold November morning. The air tasted like ice and car exhaust and life. I stood there, breathing it in, tears streaming down my face. It was over. Whatever that was. Hallucination, breakdown. Crossed wires in my exhausted brain. It didn't matter. I was out. My car sat in its usual spot, frost covering the windshield. I dug in my coat pocket for my keys. My fingers closed around cold metal. As I pulled them out, something else came with them. A piece of paper, folded small. I unfolded it with shaking hands. It was a cremation schedule. One entry. December 2nd, 10 a.m. Sarah Mitchell. No. I crumpled the paper, threw it on the ground. It wasn't real. None of it was real. I was tired, stressed. I'd go home, sleep, quit this job, never come back. I got in my car, turned the key. The engine started immediately, purring to life like nothing was wrong. See? Everything was fine, normal. I was alive and I was leaving. My phone buzzed. A text from Diana. Sorry I missed the handoff. Had a family emergency. You okay? I laughed. Actually laughed. The sound came out high and broken, but it was laughter. I typed back with trembling fingers. I'm fine. I quit. Sorry. Can't do this anymore. The response came immediately. I understand. Take care of yourself. I pulled out of the parking lot, drove toward home. The streets were empty, that strange quiet of early morning when the world feels like it belongs only to you. I turned on the radio. Classic rock. Normal. Real. A commercial for a car dealership. A weather report. Light snow expected this afternoon. My apartment building appeared ahead. I'd never been so happy to see that ugly brown brick facade. I parked, climbed the stairs. My keys fit the lock. The door opened. Everything looked exactly as I'd left it. Dishes in the sink, laundry on the bedroom floor, my laptop open on the coffee table, screen dark. I closed the door behind me, locked it, and stood there in the silence. Safe. I should shower, sleep, but first, I needed to prove to myself that I was really here, really home. I walked to the bathroom, flipped on the light, and looked in the mirror. My reflection stared back. Same tired eyes, same dark hair pulled into a messy ponytail, same silver necklace. I touched my face. My reflection did the same. Real, solid, alive. Then I noticed something on the counter, something that hadn't been there before. A name tag, the kind we wore at the funeral home, white plastic with black letters. Sarah Mitchell, night operator. My hands started shaking again. I hadn't brought that home. I never brought anything home from work. I grabbed it, meaning to throw it away, and saw there was something written on the back in red ink. December 2nd, 10 a.m. Don't be late. The bathroom light flickered. In that moment of darkness, I saw her in the mirror, not my reflection, someone else wearing my face, standing exactly where I stood, but her eyes were different, empty, patient, already gone. The lights came back, just my reflection again, normal, alone. But the name tag was real, still in my hand, still with that message in red ink. My phone rang, not a text, a call. I pulled it out, unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me, that same dark compulsion that had kept me in the office, that had made me pick up the rotary phone even when I knew I shouldn't. I answered, static. Then, underneath it, a voice I knew too well, my own voice. Evergreen Memorial Services, this is Sarah. How can I help you tonight? I'm not at work, I whispered. I left. I'm home. Are you? Check the window. I walked to my living room window, pulled back the curtain, and my heart stopped. There was no parking lot, no other buildings, no street, just darkness, endless and complete, like looking into a void. I spun around. My apartment was changing, the walls rippling, shifting, the furniture fading like old photographs left in the sun. And there, materializing in the corner, I saw it. The desk, the rotary phone, the filing cabinet, the wall of photos, my office. It had followed me, or I'd never left, or there was no difference anymore. The phone on the desk began to ring, that shrill, mechanical scream I knew so well, and I understood then, finally, completely. This was my shift now, forever, answering calls from the dead, because I was one of them, had been since September, since the night I'd stayed just a few minutes past 6 a.m., just long enough to cross over without realizing it. The phone kept ringing. I walked to the desk, sat down in the chair. It fit perfectly, like it had been made for me, like I'd been sitting in it for months, for years, for eternity. I picked up the receiver. Evergreen Memorial Services, this is Sarah. How can I help you tonight? The voice on the other end was young, female, panicked. Oh, thank God. I need help. I'm the new night operator and something's wrong. The calls keep coming from people asking about their own cremations, and Diana said to follow the rules, but I don't know what to do, and I closed my eyes, took a breath, gave her the same advice Diana had given me. Just hang up. Log it in the red notebook. Don't work past your shift. Leave at 6 a.m. Always leave at 6 a.m. But what if I can't leave? What if the door... Then it's already too late. I'm sorry. I hung up gently, pulled out the red notebook, started a new page, logged the call. Tomorrow, December 2nd, they'd cremate my body, make it official. But I'd still be here, in this office that existed between the living and the dead, answering the phone, helping the ones who called too late, who stayed too long, who couldn't find their way out. The photos on the wall had grown again. I could see her now, the new girl, young, scared, still alive for now. Her photo sat in the same spot mine had, fresh, recent, not quite ready to join the others, but she would. They always did. The phone rang again. I picked up on the second ring, professional, calm, like I'd been doing this forever, because I had, and I always would. So if you work nights, if you're alone in an office somewhere and the phone rings with someone asking questions they shouldn't know to ask, remember this. Remember me. And whatever you do, when your shift ends, leave. Don't stay even 1 minute longer. Don't think you can finish just one more task. Don't let curiosity keep you in your chair. Because some doors only open at certain times, and if you miss your window, you'll spend forever waiting for the next one that never comes. I'm still waiting, still answering, still hoping that maybe, somehow, my shift will finally end. But the clock always stops at 5:59, and the phone never stops ringing.